I do quite a lot of financial TV, and this is the hardest part. So I've got to look at someone and imagine they're naked, which will get me through it. So anyway, if I'm looking at you, that's all right. Tony. Did I say that? Okay. So this is all general in nature. I am going to give a tip slide at the end. So I will delay it so you can take a picture of my top tips. And it's totally unbiased. I haven't been told to tip them. I haven't been paid. And what you can do is, I just like to put the logos up. So take a photo and go and do your own research. And next year you can buy me a beer or something. Buy me a free beer. So anyway. Who am I? I joined, when I left school, I didn't know what the hell to do. So I took the lazy approach and became a cop. So I was stationed in Bondi, which was hard to take, and this is before methamphetamine. So I was just dealing with mainly pissed Kiwis, Maoris, Australians, and then they eventually transferred me west. So I ended up at Bankstown, which is a beautiful place. So I got the hell out. So what happened with policing was, we're on 12-hour shifts. So I found the best way to learn about the stock market was work every weekend. You get to go to lots of parties. Obviously the uniform, you try and pick up women, which was a bonus. So in 1998, I came to West Perth and walked the block, and I interviewed 20 companies and photocopied it with New South Wales Police equipment, and I actually sold that, and that became my resume to leave the police and become a broker. So I've had 20 years as a broker. I came out into the biggest bubble of our generation, which was .com. And here I was, from 50 grand a year, I was earning $70,000 a month. And it was just insane. I was writing $160 tickets a day. In those days, you didn't have the single closing auction, so I'd be there for 2 hours after market trying to sell stock to the other broker. And it was insane. People lost the plot. Everyone started getting hookers and blow habits, which is a bit of a danger when you're in that industry. But obviously, from my policing days, I treated my job as a community service. So my aim is basically to cut the crap. If you want to read about soap operas, watch The Bachelor, or read Mamma Mia blogs, I'm just here to make clients a lot of money, and that's all I care about. So my best calls. During the .com bubble, they say at the top or bottom of the market, someone throws a punch or there's violence in the dealing room. And I remember at the top of the .com bubble, another broker holding another broker up by the neck, and I thought, this is the top. And I was a couple of weeks off, and I actually suggested to people to buy Perth property, and I was ridiculed, but that call was pretty much right. Then, mid-last year, we had this craze. It was like lithium, cobalt, graphite, crypto, and you saw it everywhere in the papers. And on the 14th of January, I had this bad feeling that it was all over. So I wrote that tweet. I've pinned that tweet for, I don't know, to prove something, and I was 1 day off. A lot of the rubbish stocks peaked on the 15th of January. I think crypto, despite what Jeff Berwick said, there's quick buck artists come and go in every bull market, and a lot of those ICOs were just a way to take more money off mums and dads. So a lot of these cryptos have turned to complete rubbish. A lot of the millennials, a lot of 30-something, 40-something, a lot of women were trading Ripple on their phones, buying this rubbish at $3.50, and it went to 20-something cents. So again, you have a handful of good companies on the ASX, and you also have a lot of shit. And over my 20 years, one of my major jobs is to keep my clients away from that, to keep them level-headed. So I guess I'm a part-time psychologist in what I do. And so anyway, I'm proud of that call. My other call, when Bill Beament bought the Paulsens gold mine, I well, Bill used to come in and present to us, and I'd be the only one there. And Northern Star was a 1 cent stock. Bill bought the Paulsons mine, and I decided, okay, let's throw everything at it. So I wrote a research report for my clients when it was 6.3 cents, and I think it's now $8.70. So when he bought the mine, he paid $27 million for it. Then Intrepid said, hey, wait a sec, we want an extra $13 million. And that saw the share price fall to 4.7 cents. And I actually had a coffee with a client 2 weeks ago, and he put into Northern Star what an average lotto player goes through in a year with a 1 in 55 million chance of winning anything, and he's staring down the barrel of $1 million. No, I couldn't hold it. But what I suggest to people is buy too many and lose some stock. That's the only way of doing it. But again, my aim is to find another Northern Star. So if you see anyone who's got the corporate nous, like Bill Beament, or back him or her to the hilt. Because I think what Bill achieved was remarkable, because he needed a gold downturn to buy all these assets that other people didn't want. And they were tied assets, but look what's happened. So again, that's one of my aims. So that's probably my second best call. There's some quotes to ponder. I think the first one is pretty self-explanatory. I have this saying that when you come to a gold conference to pick up, you're pretty much at the top. And there's not much smart money at the bottom at all. And people are only attracted to assets when they're increasing in price. So the second quote from George Soros, I think, is quite brilliant. Basically, bubbles don't grow out of thin air. They're based on reality, like housing prices. So houses are good investments, that's good. And now we've got this speculative bubble in Sydney and Melbourne. So what I've done, I've actually put my balls on the line recently. There was a story on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago where Martin North said Sydney house prices are going to drop 40% in a year. And Stephen Koukoulas, who's a leading economist, tried to make a bet with Martin that he said that if prices drop 30% in 3 years, I'll give you 6-1 odds. Well, Martin said nope, so I stepped in and took that bet. Basically, I believe that that's the case. Sorry to all those with houses in Sydney. It's a bubble. And I'll quote a fact that the long-term price to income ratio, where just say the average wage now is $85,000 a year, a house on a long-term basis should cost you $255,000, not $1.1 million. So I'm not saying it's going back to $255,000, but it's got a long way to fall, I believe. And the third quote, I've matched up. It's a bit of a mishmash, but that's my quote. So fear is temporary, greed is perpetual, and human stupidity is infinite. Now, we all would have thought that the Dutch learnt from the tulips in 1637. I think humans are stupid. We're wired to buy at the top and sell at the bottom. We're wired to fall for every fad, like Coles Minis. I mean, WTF. What's happening there? To anyone that sold them on eBay for a huge profit, well done. Even gold analysts get it wrong. Now, that's not me. He's 35 kilos heavier at the time. And I know that can't be unseen. But that gold analyst, I was at a pub, and he said, gold's not going to get to $1,000 within 50 years. So I wrote that down. He signed the back of my card and agreed to a nudie run. So it wasn't long after gold actually got to $1,000, and I said, you can wear a mankini. So he ran down the main street of Subiaco in a mankini, and he's a gold analyst. Very noble of him. He actually raised $9,000 for the kids' hospital. It was on the radio. And they had the world rankings of the most obscene mankini pics, and he was number one for some time. So you can sit here and listen to the best of us, but we all get it wrong. So I liken speculation to getting a Greyhound bus from New York to LA, and heaven help us if we decide to go through the Bible Belt. So it's just a case of where you jump off that bus. So that's basically how I operate. Now, social media is just full of noise. So if you have a look at Hot Copper, you look at Twitter, you look at Facebook, a lot of that content is just rubbish, but mine's good. And yeah, anyway. So I think I just passed 4,000 genuine followers on Twitter. So yeah, it's worth the effort. So we're here for the gold. And my view is if you find 1 million ounces, you're going to have a valuation between $40 and $60 million. So it doesn't matter what happens in the meantime. If you're a genuine explorer, you go out and find it. Doesn't matter what price it is, you're going to get that valuation. So basically, the romance of speculation remains. It's a bit like the romance of flying's being killed. With online dating, romance has been killed. We're all after this quick fix. And one of the reasons why I'll never go into politics is because I went online dating too many times, and all the women will probably like to sell the story to New Idea. So that rules out politics for me. So I come up with a theory. The time to buy gold stocks is now. And out there in the booze, there are lots of great opportunities that are trading at less than half the value of what they should. And this is why we're here. And if you notice in this room, if this is the smart money, this is about right. So when this room's jam-packed and you've got dancers and everything going on, you've got a rapper promoting gold stocks, or you've got Paris Hilton promoting gold stocks, it's time to sell. So anyway, I'd like to think that people here have got some idea, and we'll move right along. So here are the gold juniors I really like. MBK, you can buy them from about 1.3 cents. They've got 3 good projects in Queensland, run by a guy with the unfortunate name of Tony Shrek. He's a bit green. Get it? No, obviously not. So these are the type of stocks where, as I said, you drill into 1 million ounces, you're worth $60 million. NUSANTARA. Now they're about to have their definitive feasibility study, I believe, released tomorrow. I don't know what it's like. If it's no good, I won't promote it. But their valuation, they have been discounted, I believe, about 80% because they're in Indonesia. And I think there's one thing to consider, that in 2032, Jakarta, I believe, will bid for the Olympics. Now, that's one of the world's fastest growing economies. So NUSANTARA, they're about 18 cents. So they listed at 42 cents, and they've just been on the downward hurdy-gurdy ever since. Torian Resources, they call them the Midnight Ninjas. So Matt and his team go out once the lease expires, they go out and peg. So I believe that they've checkmated a lot of the gold companies, so they're about 4 cents. Mako Gold is run by Peter Lefwich, who discovered all the gold for Orbis. So they went from the teens to about $170 million takeover. I had a drink with Peter and his wife, and I said, "You are one of the worst announcement writers I've ever read. Lift your game." So they came out with some average news, but they wrote it like the world had ended. So they're a good buy. They're probably around 12 cents. Alt Resources are here. The unfortunate code of ARS. I think Jim is presenting tomorrow, so I like them. Staveley Minerals. Chris Cairns ran Integra Gold from nothing to a $326 million takeover by Silver Lake. So they're hunting an absolute mother of a porphyry system in Victoria, and there's one thing about these systems, they can't run. Alto Metals, I've just raised them some money. I actually work for Alto Capital, but that's not related. I believe that stock structurally is one of the best plays on the ASX. You can pick them up for the low fours. Disclaimer, I just raised them some money at 4.7 cents. So there was one gold stock called Gold Road, which dominated the Yamana belt and went from about 4 cents to 80 cents by making a big discovery. And I think that Alto are a chance of that. So as I said before, you find 2 million ounces and you change lives. And there's one stock that has some gold on an island called Horn Island. I think there's a pub and a hospital there. But that stock's been belted down to about 1.6 cents. So anyway, they're the gold juniors I like. Thank you. And if you're after some good content, you can follow me on those social networks. I do have an opinion on everything, and I'm right. And there's my email address if you want to join me for the next part of the journey. I believe I've identified the next bubble, and I'm going to help my clients get set before anyone else, and that's where the real money is. So thank you.